right, my name is Kelly Miller Smith Jr., and I am the pastor of the First Baptist Church, Capitol Hill, here in Nashville, Tennessee. And my father was Kelly Miller Smith Sr., and my mother is sitting next to me, and she can introduce herself.
Yes, I am Alice Smith. I was married to Kelly Miller Smith Sr., and he was pastor of the church, First Baptist Church, Capitol Hill, for some 30-some years.
Well, it's interesting because even though we live here in Nashville, Tennessee, all three of us, meaning my dad, my mom, and I, were born in the state of Mississippi. My father and I both were born in an all-black town called Mound Bayou, Mississippi, and he was reared in that. That's the delta part of Mississippi. And so even as he was born there, he was actually born in the house. I was born in the hospital that was established by my grandfather through a fraternal organization that he had there called Taborian Hospital. The fraternal organization was called the Knights and Daughters of Tabor. And so we were born there. My mother was born over in Yazoo City, Mississippi, which is close to Jackson, Mississippi. And she grew up there. I think you were born in a house too, weren't you?
Yes, yes, indeed. By a midwife.
Mm-hmm. So, but it's interesting that the hospital in which I was born in was one that had a special relationship, more so with Meharry Hospital, because the doctors that were there would come down to come down to Taborian Hospital in Mississippi, and would get some of their internships in and some of their practice in order to, and it also helped the hospital in order to make sure it was staffed. But the only two that I can name very specifically, one is Dr. Matthew Walker, who was very much responsible for the doctors and the physicians that were there and that came to the hospital. And then I think one of our members here at First Baptist also went down there. His name was Dr. James McGriff, and so he went down there as well. We've been here in the city of Nashville. My mother has been here since 1951, when my father was called from a church there in Mississippi to come here to Nashville, to First Baptist Church, Capitol Hill. And so it has been over these almost 60 years, I guess, over 60 years, almost 70 years, that they've been here in the city of Nashville. And it's been an interesting journey. You want to say something about?
Well, when he was in Mississippi, he was very active there with civil rights, to the point where he had a worship service that was broadcast, and he will talk about the problems and did a lot of things there in Vicksburg, Mississippi. So when he came here to Nashville, he just continued doing what he was used to doing.
And it's interesting how during his life that there were concerns and issues with segregation here in Nashville, with discriminations and other kinds of things. And yet, as my mother has stated, he was one that was oftentimes, even during his upbringing, it was part of their understanding of the importance of addressing issues of social justice and issues that were affecting and afflicting people. Here in Nashville, one of the very specific things was the fact that lunch counters would not allow persons of color to sit and to eat in downtown Nashville. And so our church building was one of the staging places for persons to go downtown and to have sit-ins in downtown Nashville.
It was an easy walk from the first church that he pastored here to gather and then walk downtown.
And I think that is by divine design that our building was located downtown. And so that it was that people were able to leave, as Mom said, to make an easy walk from the building downtown. Of course, when they got downtown, it was not always an easy situation because there may have been persons who did not like people of color, persons who did not want them to come and eat at the counters. As a matter of fact, there was a documentary done by NBC that was called The White Papers, and the White Papers highlighted some of the issues that were going on here in the city of Nashville. My father was the one that was the narrator for that, but it also pointed out the challenges of what was going on, and even from that experience, what caused the desegregation of the lunch counters here in the city of Nashville.
I just wanted to ask one quick question. Luke Dixon, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, having children growing up here in the city of Nashville, that things happen, broken bones and other kinds of incidences that would happen on various occasions. And one of the beauties about where we lived, we actually lived in Parkwood area, that we can easily get over to Riverside Hospital, and we did not have to worry about a backlog of maybe it was to the chagrin of the hospital, but also to those of us who were going there, and that it was easy to get in and to have children taken care of and to be able to get out of there. One particular story is that my middle child had fell at her nursery and had a big gash across her eye, and needed to take her over there to the doctor, and Dr. Dixon was on duty that day. And he told me, and he did something I've never seen before, but it was so effective. He took a sheet and wrapped it around her waist, and then wrapped it around her arms. And he said, she's not going anywhere. All you have to do is hold the sheet. And she cried. She tried to move her head while he was stitching her, but she did not roll off the examining table or any issue of that nature. He was able to stitch up her eye and did an excellent job. Matter of fact, you cannot even see where it was a big gash that was right over her eye, but you cannot even see where it is now because of the work that he had done. And all of my children at one point or the other had to go to Riverside Hospital and it was either Dr. Dixon himself, or I think eventually his son, that was the ER doctor there at the hospital. And so it was always good to know that. And I was so, it's interesting that I had another daughter, my oldest child, also had a cut, but hers was on her lip. But she absolutely and positively refused to have anyone to stitch it up for her. She still has a little gash on her lip today. Whereas with the daughter who got Dr. Dixon to fix it, that you cannot even see that that's happened. Mm-hmm. Well, I was born in 1955, so I was anywhere from 6 to 15 years old. That when many of these things were going on, particularly since they were happening in the 60s. No, I didn't. So therefore, I was not engaged in the direct activities. We knew what was going on because there would be on the evening news, or my father would come home and tell us about the incident. I remember when on one occasion there were whites who were throwing bricks at the demonstrators and hit them upside the head, and they would come bleeding. I remember seeing a whole lot of the stories and hearing a lot of the stories that were going on, the things that were going on in that day. Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess you know that my oldest child was one of the children to integrate the school system. And her daddy would walk her to the school, and a few people would gather out in front of the school, and one person said to him, "We are here to make sure nothing happens."
And you keep in mind, this is at the same time that the same year, same season, when someone bombed an elementary school, the Cotton School, because of the fact that they were about to desegregate. So there was great concern that my mother and father had about their daughter going, but yet they realized that this is a step that they needed to make. So, yeah, she was one of the first ones to desegregate the schools here in the city of Nashville, the elementary school.
Can you tell us a little bit about this one?
One of them, for instance, Dr. King and my father was a part of the original group that helped to establish SCLC, which is Dr. King's organization. And then my dad came back here to the city of Nashville and started what was then known as NCLC, which was the Nashville Christian Leadership Conference. SCLC was the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and NCLC was the Nashville Christian Leadership Conference. And that was the group that helped to address many of the issues that were going on here in the city of Nashville. And out from those groups were organizations such as SNCC, which was a Student Nonviolent Committee, and then several other persons who became national names during the movement were persons who came through these organizations, and here specifically in the city of Nashville. Dr. King and my father were very, very good friends. Both of them graduated from Morehouse College, as I did, as my son did as well. And but Dr. King, when he looked to see what had happened here in the city of Nashville in terms of desegregating the lunch counters, made the comment that Nashville serves as a model for the rest of the nation in terms of what should happen and how things ought to be done. So that was the beginning of many things that happened that helped to really make Nashville the city that it is today. And unfortunately, there are many persons who don't fully appreciate the contributions of what has made this city as diverse, as open, as progressive as it is. It's from those early days, particularly in the '60s, when Nashville's hand was forced to make sure that things would happen.
What brought you back to Nashville?
Well, my first pastorate was here at Berean Baptist Church, located off of Clarksville Highway, and I was there for about 6 years, and that is when I first had the opportunity to meet Shirley, and she came and worked with us at our church there. Then I left, went to Knoxville, Tennessee for 19 years and pastored there. Then while I was there, First Baptist had to deal with some challenges in terms of the leadership. Eventually, previously, the pastor had resigned, and the congregation was without a pastor. At one point, they were out of the building for several years, and they called and asked would I consider coming back here to the city of Nashville and to First Baptist. And after prayer and the direction from God, I believe that this is what I needed to do. So I've been back here since the year 2010.
Back to Daddy's church is notable.
Right. Well, most all of my upbringing, I was baptized here. I was licensed to preach. I was ordained here, and just a lot of things that happened in my life, obviously because of our connection with the church. So it was a church that I knew, that I grew up in, that I loved, and still love because of what it has meant to me in terms of my own life and living.
Alice, would you mind?
I started out in Mississippi. I went to Tougaloo College in Mississippi. And then when we came here to Nashville, well, I started working at Tennessee State mainly because the head of the Department of Science Education was a member of First Baptist Church. And he asked me if I would come and join the faculty there. I did. So that started my being at Tennessee State. And it's interesting now as I move around, I run into some of my old students, and they are progressing and doing quite well in their work around. Yes.
What is interesting is that we were at the hospital not too long ago, and one of the ladies who was working there came up to my mother and said, "Did you used to teach at Tennessee State University?" She said, "Yes." And she said, "Yeah, I think you were my biology teacher or natural science teacher." And I said, "Oh, okay," and that was quite a few years. How many years were you there at Tennessee State?
Oh, about 36 years.
Okay. One of the interesting things about my mom is that even as, at least the version of the story that I like to tell, is that she wanted to be a doctor. Well, she was planning to be a doctor, go into the field of medicine, but eventually she got married and started having children. And started having children. And then after that, and after she retired from Tennessee State, she went on and got her doctorate anyway. It wasn't a medical doctor, but it was a doctor of education, and to show that she was still able to finish that part of her life cycle in terms of what she felt it was necessary to do. Nashville is a city that has grown in a lot of different ways over the years, and we've watched it. We've watched it from being a very segregated city to one that has become more open. There are a lot of things that still need to happen here in the city of Nashville for it to really get to the next level and to be the major city that it has the capacity to be, and major city with the good things that happen in major cities. Then, and we hope and pray that those things do happen as we progress and go forth.
We noted when we first moved here that the trash collectors were all white. They had no black people working. And I thought about that, with the problem they were having in Memphis. And here, all the trash collectors were white.
It's interesting to see how things have progressed and moved and morphed into being other kinds of things. And we think about, even over the years, that, when they were bombing houses such as Dr. Luby's, Attorney Luby's house, bombing schools and so forth, we did receive bomb threats at our house as well. And, there are things that we were challenged with even as we went forth. But it just holding our head up high and believing that God is leading us to the places we need to go are the things that helped us to get to the place where we are now, and grateful to still be alive.